Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Thank you for joining me for today's devotion, whether you're listening to the podcast on your way to work or there in your home watching the video on our YouTube channel or whatever format you're getting this. I appreciate you being part of it, and would really appreciate it if you would just invite some others to join you, talk to people about it, send out a link, and encourage others to join us for these devotions and to read God's Word with us. Today we are in chapter 3 of 1 Peter, and similar to yesterday, there was a lot in this chapter that spoke to me, and I did quite a bit of writing in my journal again. But I want to focus on one thing in what I'm sharing with you this morning, and it's what Peter says about wives and the way husbands are to treat their wife. He begins in chapter 3, and you pick it up in verse 1, and he talks not just about submission, but he talks about wives being good on the inside so that it shows up on the outside. That he's encouraging women to focus, and this would be true of men as well, but here he's focusing on wives, on women, encouraging them to focus on developing biblical and Christian character, and biblical Christian conduct. That's more important than having nice jewelry and nice clothing. Nothing wrong with those things, but he says you need to put a lot more time on developing your character and conduct. And he mentions Sarah as an example, Abraham's wife in the Old Testament in verses 5 and 6. And he talks even about Sarah being submissive to and obedient to Abraham. And the Apostle Paul said something similar to that in 1 Timothy 2 and Ephesians chapter 5. And so I want to talk about that a little bit because over the years, I've actually known men and unfortunately preachers who have abused this teaching about submission and used it to be at times harsh and selfish and harmful to their wives and even to their daughters, bad husbands and misguided preachers. It's like they read the verse that talks about being submissive, but don't read the rest of it. And husbands, let's just be honest, husbands would never abuse their wife, never misuse this passage, never be selfish and inconsiderate if they read and practiced all that Peter says in this passage. So I want us to look at the rest of what he writes about a wife and about the way a husband is supposed to treat his wife. Because guys, if you just focus on the submissive part, you're being narrow-minded and selfish. You need to read all of it. And what he says, starting in verse 7, is you husbands in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way as with someone weaker, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of grace, of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. And then in verse 8, he says to summarize everything, all of you be harmonious, sympathetic, brotherly, kind-hearted, humble in spirit, not returning evil for evil or insult for insult, but giving a blessing instead. Now in verse 7, he says, husbands, live with your wife in an understanding way. That means you are responsible for understanding her needs, her wants, her dreams, her fears, her hopes, that you are responsible for learning everything you can about her, understanding her, so you can be a blessing to her. He says in verse 7, show her honor, respect. We honor, listen, think about a relationship other than husband and wife. When we honor someone, we honor them because we think they are worth it. We honor them because we think they are someone of value. We honor them because we think they are someone significant, someone great, someone special. Husbands, that's how you're to feel about your wife and honor her. And if you do that, you're not going to be selfish. You're not going to be abusive. You're not going to be harsh. And then in verse 8, after talking about this marriage relationship, wives and how they treat their husbands and how they treat their wives, he said, can I summarize all of this? Can I summarize the way relationships are supposed to be in the family? Can I summarize how relationships are supposed to be in the church? Can I summarize how we're to treat other people? In verse 8, he says we are to treat them, we are to be harmonious. The NIV says like-minded. The ESV, unity in mind. On the same page, get along. Sympathetic. You know, every husband I've known who abused the verse about submission was a jerk who did not know how to be sympathetic and made very little, if any, effort to really understand his wife. To be brotherly, I like the NIV translation, love one another. Brotherly love. Kind-hearted, NIV says compassionate. Humble in spirit, humble in mind, courteous. You know, if husbands would treat their wives like that, there wouldn't be a lot of the problems that we have in our homes, in our communities, and in our culture today. Work on developing those attributes in your life, men, and work on treating your wife this way. Listen. Not just when she does what you want. Not just when she's good. Work on treating her like this all the time, because this is what Jesus did for you. So husbands, love your wives. Paul said this way, love your wife as Christ loved the church. Do that and you'll probably have a good marriage, and you'll probably end up on the same page and be harmonious, and she'll follow your spiritual leadership in all likelihood. Hey, God bless you. I'll see you tomorrow.